So before I jump into the demonstration, I'm just going to quickly set the scene. So this very cute picture is for the Paws and Order organization, and they are a growing pet supply organization that supports both retail customers and wholesale partners. And like many organizations out there, their customer service team handles a high volume of inquiries across multiple channels, and they range from order and delivery questions through to billing, return, and quality issues. So to support their customer service team, Paws and Order uses the Dynamics 365 Contact Center as their CCaaS platform, and it allows their agents to engage with customers across digital and voice channels while staying connected to the wider business systems like their customer data, orders, invoices, and cases. And what you'll see in this demonstration is how CCaaS isn't just about handling conversations. It helps agents work with the full customer context, which allows them to resolve issues faster, and it actually feeds insights back into the business. So service, operations, and quality can kind of all improve together. I'm going to be playing the role of our customer service representative for Paws and Order, and we're going to start today's demonstration by jumping into the Copilot for Service workspace where I do my day-to-day activities. So I'm just going to jump into the system, and immediately I'm at the Copilot for Service workspace on the agent home, and this is a really nice visual dashboard. And you can see that there's a ton of information that's immediately presented to me based on the information that's captured within the wider platform. And then I can use this information to kind of go throughout my day-to-day activities. The first thing that I want to highlight is on the right side here, we have our productivity pane. And as Michael mentioned, there's those different levels of how we can leverage AI and how AI is built into the platform, the applications. And one of the first areas and most common use cases is that retrieval of data by leveraging AI. So what I have the ability to do here is I can actually query my database without having to navigate through the application itself and find the information I'm looking for. I can basically just have a conversational interaction with the database, and I can retrieve information from within the system, which is then presented to me into a different UI. And it very much is bringing to life that AI is the new UI. And while this isn't an AI functionality, and I wouldn't want to be playing a drinking game for how many times we're going to use the word AI in this demonstration, but another really important part of the solution and the wider platform approach that Microsoft gives us is that embedded native integration with the wider Microsoft ecosystem, including the productivity suite. So here you can see I have that bi-directional integration with my productivity applications such as Teams. And Richard's having a conversation with Harry here about how his weekend. But you also have this really nice functionality that have what's called a connected chat, which opens up a conversation between Richard and Harry and potentially other employees, but it's grounded in the context of what he's referring to. In this case, it was an actual case that he was working for, where he's looking for assistance in going back to a customer on dog size or a bed size for a particular dog breed. The last thing that I want to highlight here is the presence dashboard. So what this gives me is this gives me the presence, or basically whether or not human agents are logged into the system. Here I can see that Harry's taken the day off. He hasn't logged in yet, but if I just open up myself, I can see kind of my historical presence. So this is when I'm either online or offline. And in that duration that I am online, I can see how frequently I'm busy dealing with customers through the different channels that they might be interacting me with. And obviously, you can then take this data and you can then service this in other reports as well. So for a manager, which I'll introduce Jessica later, I can collate that across the entire team, and I can start to see which of my customer service representatives are working really hard, how busy they are in their day-to-day activities, and how efficient they are getting through the work that they have to do. So closing that information on the side, I'm going to go back to the dashboard. And at the top of this dashboard, you can see that I have some really helpful information at the top of the screen. So I have my outstanding active cases. I can see how many of those cases I've resolved today, which is useful. I have pending tasks, and then I can get some historical information about cases that have been worked this month. Scrolling down to the task list, I have a prioritized task list, and here I can see that I have a high priority task that I need to get done, and then I have a low and medium, and I can start to work through those tasks throughout my day. Obviously, just being able to click into those tasks, complete the item that needs to be done, mark it as resolved, and then go back. And this little tag and visual cue to let me know what's high priority is really nice to get me working through things that need to be done immediately. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work with Richard as he completes a case. So I'm just going to open this first case that's in the list. And immediately this takes me to the case details page. And I want to call out two really key AI summarizations. Once again, that kind of level one, using AI to summarize information and present that back to the human to use that context in terms of how they go about their day job. Obviously, Richard, my job is customer service, so I'm trying to help Sophie in this case with a case resolution. And we have two areas where this AI is helping me consolidate the information. The top one is the case summary. Now, what the case summary does is it collates all of the wider information surrounding this case. So who the customer is, have we linked any knowledge articles that might help me solve this case? Are there similar cases that exist within the database that have also been resolved, and their resolution steps might be useful for me to help resolve this case? It also pulls together any correspondence that's gone back and forth with Sophie. And I can use that information to immediately get the context of what this case is, and then hopefully I can utilize that to work towards that case resolution, or at least take the next step. Scrolling down, I have the timeline. Now, in order to understand the timeline summary, it's important to also understand the timeline. The timeline essentially captures all of the different correspondence that's gone back and forth in relation to this case. Now, in this instance, we can see that Richard's already gone back to Sophie once, where he's asked for proof of damage. Essentially, he wants a picture of the broken brush. And then Sophie's actually called up and had a conversation with Harry where she's inquired about how that can be submitted. And Harry's let her know that she can either just reply to the email chain and attach the picture, or she can actually go to the Paws and Order customer portal and she can submit the image there. In order to get help filling out this case, Richard's going to use that information, but I might also click on the right side here where I have the knowledge search. And what that's going to do is it's going to take the case title and it's going to look through the knowledge base that we have on system and see if there's any potential case or knowledge articles that might help me get to that resolution. So I'm going to open this one because it looks pretty relevant. And you can see that one really nice UI capability here is that I now have multi-sessions. So now I can read through this knowledge article and potentially take steps that I need to take, but I can also quickly jump back to the case record itself, and I can work back and forth to make sure I'm using the information in that knowledge article along with the information in the case to get to as quick of a resolution as possible. If I jump to that details tab here, I can start to see any knowledge articles that have been linked. As we can see here, this one's already been attached to the case. And then I could also start to add similar cases. Now this one's quite a straightforward one. I just need to get some proof of damage and then we'll go to the next step. But if you have different cases that get raised for your organization and then they're much more heavy-handed and they might be much longer lived, then you can start to imagine how you can start to build out this really rich amount of data in relation to one case where you have multiple cases that had similar ones. You might have child cases that appear. You might have associated knowledge articles. All of that then gets summarized for you in that case summary. And then throughout the lifespan, as different staff members might be assigned to help with this case as it goes through its natural progression, they can continue to get access to all of that information. And it's a really pleasant experience for the customer as their case gets resolved. Now, all we need to do to make sure that we tackle this one is we need to go to that attachments. I need to see this proof of delivery. So I can see that there's an attachment that's been submitted by Sophie here. And if I open that image, I can see a very unhappy sheep with the head of a brush still stuck in its fur. I can see Sophie sitting there with the broken handle. At this point, Richard has enough information to decide that this is definitely going to qualify for a warranty and a replacement. So he can do the replacement order. He'd then be able to resolve the case, get the order shipped out, obviously keeping Sophie in the loop as to the activities that have been done. And so that rounds out our first example for today. And so what we've shown here is the ability that is given to us by the Microsoft and Dynamics platform to have everything at Richard's fingertips. So he can really quickly get access to all of the information that will potentially help him get the best outcome for the customer in the quickest way possible. So here, Emily's going through doing her shopping, and she's going to open up the chat box at the bottom, and she's going to start by saying that she has a question about an order that she's placed. I'm just going to share screen here so we can kind of see both sides of this happening at the same time. And I'll give Richard a little bit more space. Cool. So Richard's going to accept that chat coming in, and the conversation is going to immediately open. And that gives Richard the ability to then reply to Emily. And obviously, he is now owning that conversation as the customer service rep that's attached himself. So the first thing that Richard needs to do is he needs to get an understanding of who the person he's actually in touch with. So he introduces himself. He says that he works for Paws and Order, and he asks for the name so that he can start to look into the order. Emily provides that name back through the chat experience, and then Richard lets Emily know that he's going to use that information to start to look her up in the system so he can assist her with what she needs. So he's going to now put Emily's information into the customer, and I'm just going to expand this quickly so we can get a little bit more information or a little bit more space here. As you can see, as soon as Richard puts Emily's contact in here, a ton of information presents itself so that Richard can start to use that information in that chat with Emily to make sure that he has the context and can hopefully help her as quickly as possible. Now, Richard already knows that Emily asked an inquiry about an order. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click the search customer. Once again, this multi-session experience now gives me the ability to expand Emily's contact record. A ton of additional information about Emily opens up. I, once again, have a timeline with a summary, which gives me all of the correspondence that's gone back and forth between Emily and different staff members at Paws and Order across all of the cases and all of the orders that she's submitted. But what I'm really interested, based on the way that Emily started this conversation, is her related orders. So I'm going to scroll down, and here I can see that there's 2 orders. One's been completed and one's new. So I'm going to make the assumption that that's probably the order that she wants. Here's my order ID. And now I'm going to let Emily know that I've actually found her order, and now I'm ready to assist her. So I'd like to ask her what she needs help with. And so that's come back in, and it's quite a simple ask. Emily just wants to know when that order is going to be delivered. This is quite a common activity where I work from home a bit and get things delivered quite frequently. So she's asked when that's going to be delivered. And so Richard, as the customer service staff member, is going to start to look down the order here. And in the shipping dates area, he can see that the requested delivery date was actually for tomorrow, but he can see that this has actually already been fulfilled. This has already been delivered to Emily. So he's going to scroll down a little bit more to get some additional information, and really importantly, that shipping address. And then he's going to go back to Emily to let her know that this has actually already been delivered. And he's going to confirm the address that it's been delivered to ensure that it has been delivered to the right place. And that was where Emily was expecting it to be delivered. Now, going a little bit further in terms of the capability that having this much information at the fingertips of your customer service representatives, what Paws and Order does is they encourage their customer service reps to be a little bit personal with the customers that they're engaging with. So what Richard's also going to do is going to go back to Emily's contact record. And what we've done here is we've added the ability for Richard to see the related pets to Emily. And so Richard can see that she has a cat named Wednesday. And so he's going to add an additional personal message that says, by the way, I've seen you've ordered the same treats again. Really happy that Wednesday seems to be enjoying the treats. Now, Emily's going to take that news and she's going to say, that's amazing news to hear that it's been delivered. Unfortunately, she's at work today, so she's going to make sure that somebody else goes and picks up the orders and picks up the salmon and takes it inside so it doesn't spoil outside in the sun or get stolen by another cat in the neighborhood. And she also responds to Richard's little question about Wednesday, letting him know that Wednesday the cat is definitely enjoying the treats and potentially a little bit too much, which is also unfortunately true. I'm in trouble with the vet at the moment. And so Richard's going to go back and say, that's great to hear. And he's also going to inquire to see if there's anything else that he can help Emily with. Now, this is where, once again, we start to blend outside of the customer service space based on the capabilities the system gives us. And what could potentially happen here is Emily could actually say, actually, there is something else you could help me with. She'd like to place an order for another 2 bags, but in this case, they're going to be delivered to Emily's mom's cat, Rocky. Now, I'll just expand this screen here. What Richard can then do is he can jump back to Emily's record. He could create a new order. He can ask questions like, do you want them delivered to your address or do you want them to be delivered straight to your mom's address? And he can help Emily out in the placement of that order and actually put that order into the system for her or assist her with making that order herself through the Paws and Order website. So finally, once Richard's done all the activities that he needs to do, he's going to end that chat. And at the top right, the case management agent, this is now blending into that level 2, where there's actually AI-driven automation and tasks happening with that human in the loop. The case management is going to take the information that is captured within this conversation, and it's going to create a case for me based on that conversation. And so here you can see that an order inquiry and reorder request for pet treats has happened. So this is capturing the details and activities that happened in that case. You can see it's automatically associated to Emily. You can see the timeline is now tracking the conversation that went back and forth between Richard and Emily. If I drop down that case summary, it's going to once again give me that case summarization. Now, luckily, in this case, it's quite simple because there's nothing that needs to be done. Richard's kind of done everything that he needs to do here. So we can do a quick resolution of this case. Now, it's still really nice to have that information. And because it's being done by an AI agent, there's no additional human effort or loss of efficiency in Richard's time to get this stuff completed and put into the system. So it's worthwhile doing. Even more so if you think about the different kinds of cases that could potentially be raised, and that they may not always be immediately resolved by the customer service representative that's helping Emily based on the inquiry that she's raised there. Jump back into the Copilot for Service workspace. I'm going to open up this conversation that happened in the past between Ben and Richard. And here we get a really nice sentiment tracker. So I could replay this back if we want to listen to it live. If Jessica is in the room with Richard and Sarah and she wants to play the conversation and call up notes, pause it and stop it. You can see the sentiment with the customer that went up and down throughout the conversation as Richard was identifying information and working with Ben to get a positive result. Happily, we can see that this ended on a positive note, and we have that evaluation capability. So here I have the evaluation tab, and if I open this button up, it's going to open on the side pane for me, and this is an AI generated evaluation. However, it's important to understand that the way that this evaluation is completed is configurable. So you can update the kind of questions and the scoring criteria that the AI evaluation agent uses to decide whether or not the customer service rep that was on this conversation, whether it's a voice or a digital channel that it came through, handled things in the right way according to the policies and the criteria that you want to judge successful customer service actions. So at the very top, I have the evaluation summary. It does a pretty good job. I actually had this conversation. I went back and forth with me and Ben and yelled at myself in the room the other day to try to stage this. And it does a really good job of capturing the key points that happened in that conversation. And really nicely, if I drop down, I can look at the questions that I asked the quality evaluation to use in its evaluation of this conversation. And if I want to get a little bit more information about why it gave this response, so it looks like Richard did a good job with the greeting. They included branding language. He included his name, and then he offered assistance to the customer. I can open this about this answer, and I get a bit of a description as to why the AI agent gave the response that it gave, whether positive or negative, based on what Richard's done. So once again, that capability to leverage AI to reduce some of the human effort involved in the evaluation process, but still allows Jessica to kind of review, identify potential training opportunities, and then jump into an evaluation that's been created for her along the guidelines and criteria that they use so that it's consistent across the board for each human that's being evaluated. It removes potential bias if Jessica prefers Sarah over Richard because Richard's annoying to work with in the office. There might be some inevitable bias that comes in, but when your judgment criteria is controlled by policy and an AI tool is doing the evaluation, you get a really consistent look and feel for how your customer service representatives are doing in their day-to-day work.
Go live in weeks, not months, with Ascent Rapid Deployment.